The premium lubricant sat heavy in Derek's palm, a half-empty tube that had never graced our bedroom. After 20 years of marriage, I prided myself on being observant. It was what made me successful in business and as a father to our teenage son. But this sleek, black tube, hidden in Marissa's handbag, belonged to a stranger's intimacy, not ours. Especially since she'd dismissed this exact brand when I'd suggested it for our anniversary 6 months ago, calling it unnecessary and not something we need. How many late meetings and girls' nights had there really been while I maintained our home, attended our son's games alone, and warmed dinners that went uneaten? Would you have confronted her immediately, letting emotion dictate your response, or would you have done what I did, apply the analytical thinking that built my career to serve a justice that would stick with them both forever? Some betrayals demand more than just walking away. They deserve consequences that can't be washed off, lessons that become permanently etched in memory. If you've ever felt blindsided by betrayal from someone you trusted completely, you'll understand what Derek discovered next. Derek Sullivan closed his laptop with a satisfied click. Quarter-end reports completed 3 days ahead of schedule, a small victory in a predictable life he'd carefully constructed. 20 years at Meridian Analytics had honed his attention to detail, his ability to see patterns others missed. The suburban home he shared with Marissa and their son Jacob was quiet this Thursday evening, as it had been increasingly often over the past 6 months. He glanced at the family photo on his desk. Marissa's smile hadn't changed in the professional portraits taken every 2 years, but something else had. The subtle lean of her body, once angled toward him and Jacob, had gradually straightened, then tilted away. A body language analyst would have noticed years ago what Derek was only beginning to see. The calendar on his wall told the story more explicitly. Red circles marked Marissa's girls' nights and late meetings, once monthly occurrences that now peppered the weeks with suspicious frequency. Last January showed 3 evening commitments. This month already had 6, and they were only halfway through. Derek rubbed his temples as a headache began to form behind his eyes. The pressure had been building all day, a combination of screen time and the subtle, persistent tension that had invaded their home. The aspirin was in the bathroom cabinet, but a quick search revealed the bottle empty. Jacob must have taken the last ones for his post-practice soreness. Marissa usually carried some in her handbag for her occasional migraines. They'd developed a comfortable sharing of such small necessities over 2 decades together, the implicit trust of long marriage. Her designer purse sat on their bedroom dresser, meticulously organized as always. Derek hesitated momentarily. They respected each other's privacy, but surely medicine was an innocent need. He carefully moved aside her wallet, keys, and makeup bag. That's when he saw it. Tucked in an interior pocket was a sleek black tube with minimalist gold lettering. Premium lubricant, the exact brand he'd researched for their anniversary 3 months ago, hoping to add something new to their increasingly infrequent intimacy. Marissa had dismissed the suggestion with a wrinkled nose and quick change of subject. That's unnecessary and not something we need. Yet here it was, and unmistakably used, half empty, with the cap slightly smudged despite Marissa's usual fastidiousness. Derek's analytical mind immediately began cataloging inconsistencies. The brand was exclusive, not available in ordinary stores. He'd had to order it online during his research. The tube showed signs of repeated use, not just experimentation, and most damning, it was something Marissa had explicitly rejected with him. His phone buzzed with a text from Marissa. Meeting running late again. Client demands last-minute changes to proposal. Don't wait up. Love you. How many times had he received that exact message in recent months? The words slightly different, but the meaning constant. Don't expect me. Don't question. Derek returned the tube precisely where he found it, his movements mechanical as his mind processed this new information. He'd spent his career identifying patterns in data, finding the anomalies that revealed deeper truths. Now those same skills turned to his marriage, and he didn't like the pattern emerging. Back in his office, he opened a fresh notebook, the kind he used for major project planning. At the top of the page, he wrote timeline and began recording dates. Marissa's late nights, weekend girls' trips, sudden work emergencies. And he cross-referenced with his own calendar, noting Jacob's games and school events Marissa had missed, family dinners abbreviated or abandoned. A pattern emerged that he'd been too trusting to see, or perhaps he hadn't wanted to see it. Derek stared at their wedding photo, at the younger versions of themselves smiling with genuine hope. 20 years of building a life, raising their son, supporting Marissa's career alongside his own. 20 years of trust, now balanced against a half-empty tube of lubricant and increasingly frequent absences. His first impulse was confrontation. Demand answers, express hurt, seek explanations. The emotional response, immediate and satisfying in the moment. But the analytical mind that had built his successful career suggested a different approach. If Marissa was living a double life, there would be more evidence. His IT security training from work had taught him that digital footprints were nearly impossible to erase completely. Derek checked the time, 9:47 p.m. Marissa likely wouldn't be home for hours, giving her alibi the veneer of professional dedication. Tomorrow night was apparently another girls' night, the 4th this month according to his newly created calendar. Instead of angry confrontation, perhaps it was time for careful investigation. He made a decision that would alter the course of their lives. Tomorrow night, while Marissa was out, he would look for the truth, not just for emotional closure, but for concrete evidence. Because if his suspicions were correct, this wasn't just about hurt feelings. This was about justice. Derek closed the notebook and placed it in his desk drawer, beneath his work files where Marissa never looked. For now, he would act normal, respond to her text with his usual supportive message, and take some ibuprofen from the kitchen instead. But inside, something had fundamentally changed. The trusting husband was becoming a determined investigator, and the prey was becoming the hunter. As he swallowed the pills with a glass of water, Derek felt an unusual calm settling over him. Not the numbness of shock, but the focused clarity he experienced when solving complex problems at work. He had always believed that understanding precedes action. Gather all available data before making decisions. That principle had served him well professionally. Now it would guide his personal response too. Jacob arrived home from a friend's house, dropping his backpack by the door, despite countless reminders to hang it up. "Mom still at work?" he asked, heading straight for the refrigerator. "Yes," Derek replied, watching his son, 17 and growing so fast, caught between childhood and adulthood. "Big client presentation tomorrow." Jacob nodded absently, assembling a sandwich with the focused attention teenagers reserve for food. "She's missing my game again tomorrow, isn't she?" The question held more resignation than disappointment, which somehow hurt Derek more. "She mentioned a girls' night, but I'll be there." "You always are, Dad." Jacob offered a half-smile before disappearing upstairs with his impromptu dinner. Those words settled in Derek's chest with surprising weight. "You always are." The contrast between his consistency and Marissa's growing absences suddenly stark in their son's simple observation. Derek returned to his office, adding this moment to his timeline. Not as evidence against Marissa, but as motivation for whatever came next. Jacob deserved better than becoming collateral damage in adult deceptions. Have you ever caught someone in a lie and decided to wait before confronting them? Derek's next move shows why patience can be the ultimate revenge. The house was silent, save for the soft ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway, a wedding gift from Marissa's parents that had marked the passing of 20 years together. Derek sat on the living room couch, Marissa's tablet in his hands, the screen illuminating his face with a cold blue glow. She had left an hour ago for her girls' night, kissing him quickly on the cheek before hurrying out the door in an outfit that seemed excessive for a casual evening with friends. A new black dress he'd never seen before, heels higher than her usual preference, perfume applied more generously than normal. "Don't wait up," she'd said, the same phrase that had become a mantra in their household. "Sandra's going through that nasty divorce, you know. She needs the support. Might be a late one." He knew her password, their anniversary date, ironically enough. They had always shared these small intimacies, never expecting secrets between them. The tablet unlocked, revealing her familiar home screen with its neatly organized apps and the family photo background they'd taken in Maui last year. Derek methodically began his search, starting with her text messages and email. Nothing immediately suspicious appeared in her regular communications, which struck him as odd. For someone with so many late meetings and emergencies, there was a conspicuous absence of corresponding work communications. Her inbox contained the usual client messages, team updates, and promotional emails, but nothing suggesting the frequent crises that supposedly kept her late at the office. He checked her calendar next, finding it surprisingly sparse for someone so busy. The girls' nights were marked, but with no location details. Work meetings appeared normal during business hours, with nothing scheduled after 6 p.m., despite her frequent late returns. Then he noticed an app he didn't recognize, tucked away in a folder labeled Utilities. The icon was nondescript, easily overlooked among productivity tools. When he opened it, it requested a separate password. Derek tried their anniversary again. Access denied. He tried her birth date. Access denied. Jacob's birth date. Access denied. On his third attempt, he entered the date they'd moved into this house, a milestone Marissa had always claimed was the beginning of their real life together. The app opened, revealing a messaging platform he'd never seen before. And there they were, hundreds of messages between Marissa and someone named Chad. His breath caught as he scrolled through their exchanges. The content was explicit, detailing hotel meetups, specific acts, and planning for future encounters. Many messages referenced the premium lubricant he'd found in her bag. "Bring the black tube again tomorrow. Room 7118, 8 p.m. Can't wait to feel you against me." Derek checked the date of this message. It aligned perfectly with a girls' night from last month, when he'd sat alone at the kitchen table working on Jacob's college funding plans. He continued scrolling, methodically cross-referencing dates of messages with Marissa's calendar excuses. The pattern was undeniable. Every girls' night, every late meeting, every work emergency for the past 6 months corresponded with messages to Chad about hotel rooms and intimate encounters. What shocked Derek most wasn't the affair itself, but the duration and frequency. This wasn't a momentary lapse, but a systematic second life. Sandra's divorce drama is the perfect cover. One message from Marissa read, "D never questions when I mention her name. So convenient she's actually going through it." The casual exploitation of a friend's genuine pain as cover for betrayal struck Derek as particularly cold. The Marissa in these messages seemed like a stranger, calculating, explicit, thrilled by deception in ways that contradicted the woman he thought he'd married. Moving to his computer, Derek began searching social media for this Chad. It didn't take long. Chad Reeves, a local fitness influencer with an impressive following and a studio across town. His profile was filled with workout videos, supplement promotions, and philosophies about living your best life without limitations. In one photo, Chad stood with his arm around a group of clients after a charity workout event. Derek zoomed in, his stomach tightening. In the background, partially visible but unmistakable, was Marissa. The post was dated 4 months ago, around when the girls' nights had started increasing. The clock showed 11:30 p.m. now. Derek returned to the tablet, taking screenshots of key messages and sending them to his own email. He created a secure folder on his personal cloud storage, methodically documenting everything he found. One message from 2 days ago caught his attention. Friday night? Usual place. I've booked room 624 this time. Don't forget the good stuff. That black tube is magic. Can't wait to see what else you bring. Maybe that red thing we talked about. Tomorrow night. The girls' night Marissa had just left for was apparently just dinner before tomorrow's main event. Derek's hand hovered over the phone. He could call her now, confront her with what he knew. He could drive to the restaurant she claimed to be at and create a scene. He could wait up and demand answers when she returned. But something colder, more calculated was forming in his mind. The pain of betrayal was there, certainly, but it was crystallizing into something else, a determination to ensure consequences that matched the crime. His analytical training had always taught him that rushing to action without complete information led to suboptimal outcomes. Better to gather all available data, then formulate a response that addressed the full scope of the situation. He returned to the messages, noting something he'd initially overlooked. In several exchanges, Chad and Marissa mentioned other couples, references to Mark and Jennifer and the Donovans, who were apparently part of some larger social circle with similar arrangements. Dee thinks I'm at work events half the time, Marissa had written. Just like Karen's husband thinks she's at book club. If they all knew how close they were sitting at Jacob's school fundraiser, they'd die. So this wasn't just an affair. It was part of a network, a subculture of deception operating beneath the surface of their social circle. The betrayal expanded beyond their marriage into their community. The next morning, Derek maintained perfect normalcy over breakfast. Jacob chatted about school, while Marissa, who had returned late, sipped coffee and checked her phone frequently. "Another girls' night tonight?" Derek asked casually, buttering his toast. "Yes, Sandra's going through that divorce, you know. She needs the support," Marissa replied, without looking up from her phone, unaware she was repeating almost verbatim the excuse she'd used in her messages to Chad. "Of course," Derek nodded sympathetically. "You're such a good friend. Will you be at the same place as last time?" "Probably. Depends on what Sandra needs," Marissa replied, a slight tension appearing around her eyes at the specific question. "Well, give her my best," Derek said. "Tell her if she needs any financial advice during the divorce, I'm happy to help. Pro bono, of course." "That's thoughtful," Marissa said, already standing to rinse her cup. "I've got to run." Big presentation this morning. After dropping Jacob at school, Derek drove to the hardware store instead of his office. Walking the aisles, he found himself in front of the adhesives section. The industrial-strength superglue caught his eye, and a plan began to form. A plan for justice that would be as sticky as the betrayal itself. What would you do if you discovered your spouse was not only cheating, but had created an elaborate double life? Derek's strategic approach might surprise you. The fluorescent lights of the hardware store cast harsh shadows as Derek examined the selection of adhesives. A middle-aged employee in a red vest approached, noting his focused expression. "Need help finding something specific?" the man asked, his name tag reading Frank. "I'm looking for the strongest adhesive you carry," Derek replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil beneath. "Something that bonds instantly and is difficult to remove." Frank nodded knowingly. "Home project or professional use?" "Let's call it a special project," Derek said with a thin smile. The employee pointed to a small tube of industrial-strength superglue in a protective package. "This stuff will bond just about anything. Once it sets, there's no separating it without damage. We use it for repair jobs where regular glue won't cut it. Works on skin too. That's why it comes with this warning label. Get it on your fingers, and you'll be stuck together until the skin cells die off." "Perfect," Derek said, taking 2 tubes. "Exactly what I need. Does it have a similar consistency to, say, personal lubricant?" Frank raised an eyebrow but maintained professional composure. "Bit thinner when first applied, but it flows similar. Gets tacky almost immediately, though, unlike most lubricants that stay slick. Why do you ask?" "Just comparing it to other products I've worked with," Derek replied smoothly. "I need something that would be visually similar in the tube, but with very different properties when applied." "Well, this should do the trick. Just be careful. This industrial grade is no joke. We get customers in here every few months who've glued their fingers together accidentally." "I'll be extremely careful," Derek assured him, adding a pair of nitrile gloves to his purchase. "Precision is important in my line of work." At home in his garage workshop, Derek laid out his materials with the same methodical approach he applied to everything. The premium lubricant tube he'd removed from Marissa's bag while she showered that morning sat beside the superglue, their packaging strikingly different but contents visually similar. The design of the lubricant tube was simple, a screw-off cap with a narrow application tip. With surgical precision, wearing the nitrile gloves, he emptied the remaining contents into the sink, thoroughly cleaned the interior with alcohol, and began the delicate process of refilling it with superglue. The consistency was different, but visually similar enough. He made sure the outside of the tube was immaculate, perfectly resembling its original state. When finished, he held it up to the light, examining his handiwork. The tube looked untouched, giving no indication of its altered contents. Derek felt a strange detachment as he worked, as if watching himself from a distance. The betrayed husband part of him remained in shock, processing the emotional impact of Marissa's deception. But the analytical problem solver had taken control, approaching this as he would any complex challenge, with logic, precision, and attention to detail. That evening, Derek sat across from Marissa at dinner, maintaining the performance of normality that had apparently defined their marriage for months. He'd prepared her favorite pasta dish, opened a bottle of the Pinot Noir she preferred, created the illusion of an ordinary Thursday night. "Jacob mentioned he has a game next Thursday," Derek said, serving the pasta he'd prepared. "Will you be able to make it, or do you have another work thing?" "I should be able to," Marissa replied, though her attention was clearly elsewhere. She checked her phone again under the table, a small smile playing at her lips. "The Hendrickson proposal should be wrapped up by then. He'd appreciate that. He's noticed you've missed the last few." Derek kept his tone casual, conversational, hiding the knowledge that she'd been with Chad during Jacob's last important game. "Work has been intense lately. You know how it is at quarter end." Marissa took a sip of wine, her eyes not quite meeting his. "This pasta is delicious, by the way." "Just an old recipe," Derek replied. "Sometimes the classics are best." After dinner, Marissa disappeared upstairs to get ready. Derek heard the shower running as he cleaned the kitchen, calmly washing dishes while imagining the evening ahead. The methodical movements, rinsing, washing, drying, kept his hands busy while his mind refined the details of his plan. When she emerged, she wore a form-fitting red dress that Derek hadn't seen before. Her hair and makeup were immaculate, far more effort than seemed appropriate for a casual night with girlfriends supposedly focused on supporting a friend through divorce. "You look nice," he commented. "Sandra will appreciate the effort." "Thanks," she said, kissing his cheek quickly. The gesture, once meaningful, now seemed perfunctory, a performance of affection rather than its reality. "Don't wait up." "You know how these nights go. Lot of talking, lot of wine." "Of course," Derek nodded, walking her to the door. "You have everything you need?" "Yes, all set." She patted her handbag, the same one now containing the modified tube. "Drive safely. Text me when you're headed home." Standard phrases. Empty of the concern they once carried. After her car pulled away, Derek sat in his office, staring at the evidence he'd collected. Screenshots of explicit messages, dates of hotel meetings, the connection to Chad Reeves. He'd discovered that tonight they were meeting at the Westbrook Hotel downtown, room 624. He could picture them now. The anticipation, the secrecy, the excitement of their deception. And then, the moment when their intimate encounter would take an unexpected turn. Derek didn't feel anger anymore. Instead, a cold satisfaction settled over him as he imagined the scene unfolding across town. The superglue would take effect almost instantly. The pain would be significant. The embarrassment profound, the necessity of seeking medical attention unavoidable. He considered the ethics of his response briefly. Was it excessive? Perhaps? Legal? Technically, he'd altered his own property. The lubricant had been purchased with their joint account after all, and while the consequences would be uncomfortable, they wouldn't cause permanent damage. Just enough pain and humiliation to create a moment of truth that couldn't be explained away or denied. Derek poured himself 2 fingers of bourbon, something he rarely did on weeknights. The amber liquid caught the light as he contemplated the consequences of his actions, not just for Marissa and Chad, but for himself, for Jacob, for their future, whatever shape it might take after tonight. He wasn't just punishing betrayal, he was forcing an end to deception. After tonight, the pretense couldn't continue. The truth would emerge, painful but necessary, like a festering splinter finally exposed and removed. At 2:17 a.m., his phone rang. Marissa's name flashed on the screen. Derek waited until the 4th ring before answering, his voice deliberately groggy. "Hello?" "Derek." Marissa's voice was tight, with barely controlled panic. "I'm so sorry to wake you. There's been an emergency at work. A server crashed. Client data is at risk. I have to go in." "At 2 in the morning?" Derek asked, injecting just the right amount of sleepy confusion. "Yes, it's a disaster. The whole system is down. I might need to stay until morning to sort it out. I'm so sorry." "Do you need me to bring you anything?" he offered, the perfect, concerned husband. "I could drop off coffee, breakfast." No, that's not necessary," she said quickly, alarm evident in her voice. "Just wanted you to know where I am. Go back to sleep." After hanging up, Derek lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The trap had been sprung. Now came the consequences. The next morning, over coffee with neighbor Bob Miller, Derek received confirmation. "Strangest thing last night," Bob mentioned casually. They often chatted over the shared fence between their properties, trading neighborhood news and home maintenance tips. An ambulance came to the Westbrook Hotel around 3 in the morning. My brother-in-law works security there. Said it was some kind of medical emergency, but very hush-hush. Something about a couple needing, separation assistance, if you know what I mean. Derek maintained a neutral expression. That sounds uncomfortable. You don't know the half of it, Bob chuckled. Apparently it was quite the scene. They had to take them to the hospital together, like a three-legged race, but not the fun kind. Derek nodded sympathetically, sipping his coffee to hide the satisfaction spreading through him. Phase 1 of justice had been served. And Marissa would be coming home soon with a story to tell. Sometimes the most devastating consequences come not from emotional outbursts, but from methodical planning. Derek's next move proves why you should never underestimate the quiet ones. Derek was reviewing work emails when he heard Marissa's car pull into the driveway. He glanced at the clock, 2:30 p.m., nearly 12 hours after her panicked phone call. He continued typing, not looking up when the front door opened. "You're home early," he commented neutrally. Marissa stood in the doorway, her appearance a stark contrast to the polished woman who had left yesterday evening. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smudged despite obvious attempts to fix it. She walked with a subtle stiffness, discomfort evident in her careful movements. "The server issue was a nightmare," she said, setting her bag down gingerly. "We finally got it stabilized, but I'm exhausted." "The backup systems were corrupted too, so we had to rebuild from scratch." Derek nodded, noting her technical explanation, unnecessarily detailed, a classic sign of deception. Marissa's knowledge of IT systems was superficial at best, yet here she was describing server failures with suspicious specificity. "You look like you've been through the ringer," he observed. "Everything okay? You're moving like you're in pain." "Just tired, and I fell in the server room, hit my hip on the corner of a rack. It's nothing serious." She attempted a dismissive laugh that came out strained. "Those data centers are obstacle courses." "Maybe I should make you something special for dinner," Derek offered. "Something comforting after your ordeal. I can pick up ingredients while you rest." Gratitude and relief washed over Marissa's face. "That would be wonderful." "Thank you." As she slowly ascended the stairs, Derek returned to his computer, opening a new browser tab to research capsaicin concentrations. The next phase of his response was taking shape, not just impulsive revenge, but a calculated escalation. 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Derek answered to find a visibly agitated man on his doorstep. Athletic build, expensive workout clothes, and a face Derek recognized from social media photos. Chad Reeves. Up close, he looked younger than in his profile pictures, perhaps early 30s, with the sculpted physique of someone who made fitness their career and identity. "Is Marissa here?" Chad demanded, his voice tight with panic. "I need to speak with her immediately." Derek maintained a calm demeanor. "And you are?" "I'm her personal trainer," Chad said quickly, the lie coming easily. "It's an urgent matter about her fitness plan." "Her fitness plan requires an emergency house call on a Saturday?" Derek raised an eyebrow. "She must be getting exceptional results to warrant this level of service." A flush spread across Chad's face. Embarrassment, anger, or pain, perhaps all three. "It's a specialized program. Very time-sensitive adjustments." "I see. And would these adjustments happen to involve a particular brand of premium lubricant?" Chad's expression froze, color draining from his face. Before he could respond, Marissa appeared at the top of the stairs, her face paling at the sight of her visitor. "Chad, what are you doing here?" The panic in her voice was unmistakable. "We need to talk. Now, about what happened." Chad's composure was cracking, his hand moving unconsciously toward his groin area before stopping. Derek watched this exchange with clinical detachment. "Perhaps you two should discuss this fitness plan in the living room. I was just heading out to pick up some groceries for dinner." The look of relief on both their faces confirmed everything. Derek grabbed his keys and left them to their panicked conference, driving not to the grocery store, but to his friend Michael Jensen's house. Michael, an IT security specialist Derek had met through work conferences, welcomed him into his home office filled with computer equipment. At 53, Michael had the focused energy of someone who'd found their perfect profession, solving digital puzzles others couldn't crack. "So you were right about the affair," he said after Derek explained the situation, carefully omitting details of his revenge. "I'm sorry, man. That's rough after 20 years. "Unfortunately, yes. But I think there's more to this," Derek replied, showing Michael the tablet. "Can you recover any deleted messages or hidden apps? I need to understand the full scope before I decide next steps." Michael worked methodically, using specialized software to access hidden data. "There's another encrypted messaging app here," he said after an hour. "And it's not just Chad she's communicating with." What they discovered was disturbing. Marissa was part of a network of married people engaged in orchestrated affairs. The messages revealed connections to tax evasion schemes through fake business expenses for their rendezvous and links to high-end escort services that some members utilized. "Look at this," Michael pointed to a message thread. "They're running hotel charges through shell companies, claiming business expense deductions. That's tax fraud." Another thread revealed something even more concerning. "Got those pills you asked about? They'll keep him sound asleep all night. No chance of waking up when you get home late." "Is she talking about sedating me?" Derek asked, a chill running through him. "Looks that way," Michael confirmed grimly. "There are several exchanges about various sedatives, discussing dosages and effectiveness." Derek sat back, processing this information. What he'd uncovered went beyond marital infidelity into potentially criminal territory. "Make copies of everything, please. I need to think about what to do with this." When Derek returned home, Chad was gone. Marissa lay in bed, claiming her fall had left her sore and in need of rest. Derek played the concerned husband, promising a special dinner to help her recover. In the kitchen, he prepared a chicken curry, methodically adding ghost pepper extract to Marissa's portion. The spice level would be excruciating for anyone, but particularly for someone already experiencing discomfort from the previous night's medical emergency. As he cooked, Derek considered his next steps. The superglue incident had been personally satisfying, but ultimately superficial. The evidence of illegal activities, however, opened pathways to more substantial consequences, legal, financial, and social repercussions that would far outlast any physical discomfort. That evening, Marissa sat across from Derek at the dinner table, taking her first bite of curry. Her eyes widened instantly. "This is very spicy," she gasped, reaching for water. "Is it?" Derek took a bite of his own, normally spiced portion. "Tastes fine to me. Maybe your taste buds are sensitive after your stressful day." Marissa struggled through a few more bites, her face flushing, tears forming in her eyes. The water only spread the capsaicin, intensifying the burn. "I think I need to stop," she finally said, her voice strained. "My stomach doesn't feel right." Derek nodded sympathetically. "You've had a rough 24 hours. Why don't you get some rest? I'll bring you some soothing cream for that hip injury." In the bathroom, Derek carefully emptied Marissa's prescribed analgesic cream, replacing it with a mixture containing concentrated capsaicin oil. The revenge was calculated, painful, but not permanently damaging, just like the pain of betrayal he'd experienced. As he handed her the tube, Derek felt no guilt, only a cool sense of justice being served. This was merely the beginning. The evidence of criminal activity would lead to consequences far beyond temporary discomfort. While Marissa applied the cream, Derek went to Jacob's room, finding his son with headphones on, engrossed in homework. "Hey," Derek said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Everything okay with you?" Jacob removed his headphones. "Yeah, just finishing some calculus. Is Mom sick? She looks awful. She's not feeling well. Work stress, she says." Derek chose his words carefully, not wanting to burden Jacob with adult complications yet. "Listen, there might be some changes coming up. Nothing for you to worry about, but things might get a bit different around here." Jacob studied his father's face. Is this about Mom being gone all the time, or something else? Derek sometimes forgot how perceptive his son had become. "It's complicated. When the time is right, we'll talk about it properly. For now, just focus on school and your game next week." Jacob nodded slowly. "Okay, Dad, but I'm not a kid anymore. Whatever's happening, I can handle it." "I know you can," Derek said, squeezing his son's shoulder. "That's what makes me proud." As Derek left the room, he heard the first muffled sounds of distress from the master bedroom. The trap was set, the pieces in motion. Phase 2 of justice was about to begin. Marissa's scream pierced the quiet house at 3:17 a.m. Derek sat up in bed immediately, having anticipated this moment. He'd been sleeping in the guest room, claiming he didn't want to disturb her recovery. "Derek!" Her voice was frantic, pained. "Something's wrong. It's burning." He hurried to the master bedroom, finding Marissa writhing in agony, clutching at her lower body. The soothing cream had done its work, the concentrated capsaicin creating an unbearable burning sensation on already sensitive tissue. "What's happening?" he asked, feigning concern while internally noting the effectiveness of his formula. "The cream. It's making it worse," she gasped. "It's like fire. I need to go to the hospital." Jacob appeared in the doorway, alarmed by the commotion. "What's going on? Mom, are you okay?" Derek turned to his son. "Your mother's having a reaction to some medication. I'm going to take her to the emergency room. You stay here and get some sleep. You have practice in the morning." "But," Jacob began. "It's okay," Derek assured him. "Just a bad reaction. Nothing serious." As Derek helped Marissa to the car, her movements were awkward and pained. She kept a blanket wrapped around herself, dignity lost to agony. "What was in that cream?" she demanded through gritted teeth. "The prescription your doctor gave you," Derek replied evenly. "Perhaps you're having an allergic reaction." The emergency room was quiet at that hour, allowing them to be seen quickly. Derek maintained his supportive husband role as medical staff examined Marissa, keeping a respectful distance when the doctor asked him to step out during the examination. "Mr. Sullivan," the doctor said when she emerged from the examination room, "your wife is experiencing what appears to be a chemical burn. This isn't a typical reaction to standard analgesic cream. Was she using any other products concurrently?" "Not that I'm aware of," Derek replied with genuine seeming concern. "Just the cream prescribed after her accident yesterday." The doctor's expression suggested professional skepticism. "Mrs. Sullivan was treated for a rather unusual injury yesterday. And now this reaction. I'm going to be direct with you both. These circumstances are concerning." Derek nodded solemnly. "I understand, Doctor. I've been concerned myself about some of my wife's recent behaviors and explanations." While Marissa received treatment for the chemical burn, Derek sat in the waiting room, using the time to plan his next steps. The personal revenge phase had served its purpose, creating undeniable consequences that couldn't be explained away with convenient lies. Now it was time to shift toward the formal, legal response that would deliver more lasting justice. After Marissa was admitted for observation and treatment, Derek returned home alone. Jacob was waiting up despite the early hour, his young face lined with worry beyond his years. "Dad, what's really going on?" Mom looked terrified, not just in pain. Derek sat beside his son, weighing how much to share. "Your mother is going through some things right now. I've recently discovered she hasn't been honest with either of us about where she's been spending her time." Jacob's expression suggested this wasn't entirely surprising. "You mean the work emergencies and girls' nights?" "Yes, there's more to it, but that's the essence. I'm handling it, and when the time is right, we'll talk more specifically about what this means for our family." "Is she having an affair?" Jacob asked directly, showing the straightforward thinking of his generation. Derek looked at his son, recognizing that shielding him from reality might do more harm than good. "Yes, and there are some other complications I'm still working through. But I want you to know that whatever happens between your mother and me, it doesn't change how either of us feels about you." "Okay," Jacob said simply. "Thanks for not lying to me." In his office, Derek began organizing the evidence he'd collected. Screenshots of messages, financial records Michael had recovered, connections to the broader network of affairs, and illegal activities. He arranged everything chronologically, building a comprehensive case that went far beyond marital infidelity. The next morning, Derek called his office, taking personal leave for the week. Then he made another call to Jennifer Martin, a respected divorce attorney recommended by a colleague who had navigated his own divorce 3 years earlier. Jennifer's office projected understated success, tasteful furnishings, credentials displayed without ostentation, the atmosphere of confident competence. She was in her early 60s, with the sharp eyes of someone who'd seen every possible variation of marital dissolution. "Before we begin," she said after introductions, "I want to understand your priorities. Some clients want maximum financial benefit, others want custody, others simply want speed and minimal drama. What matters most to you?" "Protection of my son's emotional well-being first," Derek replied without hesitation. "Then protection of assets I've worked for, and custody arrangements that reflect what's best for Jacob." Jennifer nodded approvingly. "Good priorities. Now tell me the situation." She reviewed Derek's evidence methodically, her expression revealing nothing until she'd seen everything: the affair documentation, the financial irregularities, the network connections to potential illegal activities, and finally, the messages about sedatives. "You've been very thorough," she finally said. "Most clients come to me with suspicions. You've brought me a complete case." "I wanted to understand exactly what I'm dealing with," Derek replied. "Based on what you've shown me, you're in an exceptionally strong position. The infidelity is documented beyond question. The connection to potentially criminal activities further strengthens your case." She leaned forward. "You mentioned your son is 17. "Yes, he'll be 18 next August. That simplifies custody somewhat, though the court will still make formal arrangements until his birthday. Given his age and these circumstances, his preference will carry significant weight." Jennifer made notes as she spoke. "I see no reason why you wouldn't be granted primary custody given these circumstances." Derek nodded, feeling the first genuine relief since discovering the lubricant tube. "There's one more thing you should know. When reviewing the messages, I found references to Marissa obtaining sedatives. There are exchanges suggesting she considered using them on me to ensure I wouldn't wake up during her late-night activities." Jennifer's expression hardened. That moves beyond infidelity into potentially criminal territory. Do you have those specific messages documented? Yes, along with everything else. Mr. Sullivan, I need to ask, these recent incidents with your wife's injuries, were you involved in causing them? Derek met her gaze directly. I replaced the lubricant in her bag with superglue and later substituted her prescribed cream with a capsaicin mixture. Juvenile and perhaps vindictive, but not permanently harmful. Jennifer didn't flinch. I appreciate your honesty. While I can't condone such actions, they're unlikely to significantly impact the divorce proceedings given the context. However, I strongly advise against any further similar activities. From this point forward, we maintain complete professionalism and let the legal system deliver consequences. Understood. That phase is over. After leaving Jennifer's office, Derek drove to the local police station. Detective Sarah Reynolds listened carefully as he explained the situation, focusing specifically on the tax evasion and potential illegal escort services connections. This is extensive, she said, reviewing the evidence copies. The financial fraud aspects alone warrant investigation. The other elements may involve additional departments. I understand this goes beyond a typical marital dispute, Derek said. I'm coming forward because these activities appear to violate laws, not just wedding vows. Detective Reynolds nodded. We'll begin looking into this immediately. You may be contacted by other investigators as we proceed. When Derek visited Marissa in the hospital that evening, she had been moved to a specialized treatment unit. The doctor explained that the chemical burn required more extensive intervention than initially thought. The tissue damage is significant, the doctor explained. We're considering a minor surgical procedure to prevent scarring and ensure proper healing. Marissa looked at Derek fearfully, clearly wondering if he somehow knew the truth. He maintained his supportive husband role perfectly, holding her hand and assuring her everything would be all right. I'll have everything ready at home for your recovery, he promised, knowing that everything included divorce papers and evidence of her criminal activities. As he left the hospital, Derek felt no satisfaction in Marissa's physical discomfort. That had never been his primary goal. The real justice would come through legal channels, exposing the truth and ensuring appropriate consequences for all involved. At home, he sat with Jacob, carefully explaining that some changes would be coming to their family. Without revealing the sordid details, he prepared his son for the reality that his mother had made choices that would affect their family structure. No matter what happens, Derek assured him, you will always be my priority. We're going to get through this together. The pieces were falling into place. The personal revenge had been satisfying, but temporary. The real consequences, legal, financial, and social, were just beginning. FBI agent Thomas Miller's office at the Federal Building downtown projected authority and seriousness. The walls were adorned with credentials and commendations, but the space was otherwise utilitarian, designed for work, not comfort. Agent Miller himself embodied the same qualities, efficient, direct, with the focused intensity of someone who specialized in financial crimes. Mr. Sullivan, Agent Miller began. Detective Reynolds forwarded your information to us due to the interstate nature of some of these activities. Tax evasion across state lines falls under federal jurisdiction. Derek nodded. 3 weeks had passed since his initial police report. During that time, Marissa had returned home, her physical recovery progressing while remaining oblivious to the legal storm brewing around her. Derek had maintained his supportive facade while finalizing divorce preparations with Jennifer. We've been investigating similar networks in 3 states, Agent Miller continued, opening a file on his desk. The information you provided connects several missing pieces. This group has been using business expense accounts to fund their activities, claiming tax deductions for what are essentially personal indulgences, sometimes involving paid companions. I only discovered this recently, Derek explained. My concern was initially just my wife's infidelity, but when I saw the broader implications, I felt obligated to report it. You did the right thing, the agent assured him. Financial crimes may seem bloodless compared to other offenses, but they undermine the entire system. Everyone else pays higher taxes while these individuals fund their lifestyles through fraud. He closed the file. We'll need your continued cooperation as this investigation proceeds. It may take months, possibly longer. I understand. I'm prepared to assist however needed. That same day, an anonymous video appeared on social media. Security camera footage from the Westbrook Hotel showed paramedics awkwardly transporting two people stuck together in an intimate position from room 624 to an ambulance. Though faces were blurred, Chad Reeves was recognizable by his distinctive tattoos and the fitness brand clothing he always wore. The video went viral within hours. Fitness influencer forums quickly identified Chad, and speculation ran rampant about his companion. By evening, Chad's fitness studio had issued a statement parting ways with him due to conduct inconsistent with our values and brand image. When Derek returned home that evening, Marissa was in a state of panic, her phone buzzing constantly with notifications. "Have you seen the video?" she asked, her voice tight with fear. "What video?" Derek asked innocently. "Nothing." "Never mind." She disappeared upstairs, where Derek could hear her engaged in intense, hushed phone conversations. The next day, local news outlets picked up the story, reporting that the viral stuck couple incident had led to discoveries of potential financial crimes. While no names were officially released, social media had already connected dots between Chad Reeves and several married professionals in the community. Derek watched these developments with detached interest, like a chess player seeing a carefully planned sequence unfold. He had not leaked the video himself, likely it came from someone at the hotel, but its timing aligned perfectly with the legal proceedings he had initiated. By week's end, Marissa's social circle had dramatically contracted. Former friends stopped calling. Invitations disappeared. Her company announced she would be taking leave to address personal matters after financial auditors began examining expense reports. Jacob, perceptive as always, noticed the changing atmosphere at home. "Mom's friends all disappeared pretty fast," he observed one evening while doing homework at the kitchen table. "People often reveal their true nature during difficult times," Derek replied carefully. "Yeah, I noticed that when Zach's parents split up last year, half their friends just vanished." Jacob tapped his pencil thoughtfully. "You still have your friends, though." "I've always valued quality over quantity in friendships," Derek said, "and I've tried to be honest with the people in my life." The breaking point came when Chad appeared at their house again, this time in a state of complete desperation. Derek and Jacob were working in the yard when his car screeched into the driveway. "Get inside," Derek told his son quietly. "Dad." Jacob began to protest. "Inside. Now." Derek's tone left no room for argument. Chad stormed toward Marissa, who had come to the front door, his face contorted with anger. "This is your fault," he shouted at Marissa in the driveway, loud enough for neighbors to hear. "You said your husband was clueless. Now my career is ruined, I'm under investigation, and no one will touch me professionally." "Lower your voice," Marissa hissed, trying to pull him inside. "Why should I? Everyone knows anyway. That video has 3 million views." Derek watched this exchange from a distance, making no move to intervene as the argument escalated. Only when it became physical, Chad grabbing Marissa's arm roughly, did Derek step forward, phone in hand. "I've called the police," he announced calmly. "I suggest you leave immediately." Chad turned his anger toward Derek. You did this somehow." "I discovered my wife was cheating," Derek replied evenly. "Everything that followed was the natural consequence of your actions together. The police will be here shortly." When officers arrived, both Chad and Marissa were arrested. Chad for assault, and Marissa for attempting to strike him with a garden ornament during their altercation. The public spectacle completed their social disgrace. From the window, Jacob had witnessed everything. When Derek came inside, his son was sitting on the stairs, processing what he'd seen. "So that's him," Jacob said simply. "Yes." "Does Mom really get arrested now?" Derek sat beside his son. "For what happened outside, yes. There may be other legal issues coming too. I'm sorry you had to see that." Jacob was quiet for a moment. "You know what's weird? I'm not even that surprised. It's like I've known something was off for a long time. Just didn't know what." He looked at his father. "You've been planning this, haven't you? Not just reacting." "I discovered what was happening and decided to respond strategically rather than emotionally," Derek acknowledged. "Some might say that's cold." "I think it's smart," Jacob replied. "Blow-ups don't solve anything. My friend Tyler's dad went crazy when his mom cheated, trashed the house, made scenes everywhere. Now Tyler barely sees him because the judge thought he was unstable." Derek was struck by his son's maturity. "We'll get through this. It will be difficult for a while, but eventually things will stabilize into a new normal." "I know, Dad. We'll be okay." Derek visited Jennifer's office the following day to review final divorce proceedings. "Given recent developments, your position is even stronger," she advised. "Your wife's arrest, combined with the ongoing federal investigation, makes the custody case nearly certain in your favor." "And the financial aspects?" "The court will likely freeze many of her assets pending the federal investigation outcomes. Your separate accounts and properties should remain untouched, as there's no evidence you participated in or benefited from any illegal activities." Derek nodded, feeling a sense of closure beginning to form. "When will this be finalized?" "We have a court date next week. Given the circumstances and evidence, I anticipate a swift resolution." The justice Derek had sought was materializing, not through his personal revenge tactics, which had provided temporary satisfaction, but through the legal system and social consequences that were the natural result of exposed deception. As he left Jennifer's office, Derek felt no joy in Marissa's downfall, only a somber recognition that actions have consequences, and truth eventually comes to light. The courtroom fell silent as Judge Eleanor Patterson delivered her ruling. Derek sat beside Jennifer, his posture calm but alert. Across the aisle, Marissa and her attorney presented a stark contrast, tension evident in every line of their bodies. "Having reviewed all evidence and testimony in this matter," Judge Patterson began, her voice carrying the weight of 30 years on the bench, "this court grants the petition for divorce on grounds of adultery and abandonment. Regarding property division, petitioner Derek Sullivan shall retain the family home and his separate financial assets. Respondent Marissa Sullivan shall retain her personal property and accounts not subject to ongoing federal investigation." The judge paused, looking directly at both parties. "On the matter of custody for minor child Jacob Sullivan, the court awards sole legal and physical custody to the father, Derek Sullivan, with supervised visitation rights for the mother pending resolution of criminal charges and demonstration of stability. Derek exhaled slowly, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. The primary battle was won. Jacob would remain with him, protected from the chaos Marissa had created. This court further orders that all college funds established for the minor child shall remain intact and used exclusively for their intended purpose under the management of the father. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered, drawn by the connection to the ongoing federal investigation that had now expanded to include dozens of professionals across 3 states. Derek declined comment, walking steadily to his car, while Marissa faced a barrage of questions about both the divorce and pending criminal charges. In the car, Jennifer turned to Derek. "That went exactly as we anticipated. You're officially divorced, with full custody and protection of assets. How are you feeling?" Derek considered the question. Relieved primarily, not triumphant or vindicated, just ready to move forward. "That's a healthy perspective," Jennifer noted. "Many clients in your position want to spike the football, so to speak. Your focus on moving forward will serve both you and your son well." 1 week later, Derek sat in another courtroom, this time as an observer rather than participant. The criminal proceedings against Marissa and Chad had been expedited due to overwhelming evidence and their decision to accept plea agreements. The prosecutor outlined the charges: tax fraud, filing false business expenses, and for Marissa specifically, conspiracy to commit fraud. The escort service connections had been pursued as a separate case against other network members. "The defendants have agreed to plead guilty to all charges," the prosecutor explained to Judge Raymond Morales. "In exchange for cooperation with ongoing investigations into the broader network, the state recommends reduced sentences." Judge Morales reviewed the agreements carefully before addressing the defendants. "Mr. Reeves, this court sentences you to 24 months in state prison, Mrs. Sullivan. You are sentenced to 18 months, with possibility of parole after 12 months, contingent on continued cooperation with federal authorities." As Marissa was led away by court officers, she looked back at Derek, meeting his eyes for the first time in weeks. Her expression held a complex mixture of anger, shame, and something else, perhaps recognition of the justice being served. Derek felt no triumph in that moment, only a solemn acknowledgement that the chapter was closing. The consequences had matched the crimes, not just the infidelity that had broken their marriage, but the broader pattern of deception and illegal activity that had been revealed. That evening, Derek and Jacob sat at their kitchen table, the space already feeling different without Marissa's presence. "So Mom's really going to prison," Jacob said, pushing pasta around his plate. "Yes, for about a year, maybe less with good behavior." Derek kept his tone neutral, factual. "Because of the affair?" "No, because of the financial crimes connected to it. The affair was wrong, but not illegal. The tax fraud and other activities were both." Jacob nodded, processing this. "Some kids at school are talking about it. Not to me directly, but I hear things." "That must be difficult," Derek acknowledged. "How are you handling it?" "Better than I expected," Jacob admitted. "Coach Taylor pulled me aside yesterday, said sometimes the hardest things make us strongest. He would know. His wife died of cancer last year." "He's right. And you can always talk to me, or we can find someone professional if you'd prefer that." "I know, Dad. I'm okay for now. Just weird to think about Mom in jail." 1 year later, Derek sat in his home office, reviewing Jacob's college application essays. The past 12 months had brought significant healing for both of them. Regular therapy had helped Jacob process his mother's actions and absence. Derek had rebuilt their home life with new traditions and stability. The house felt different now, cleaner somehow, unburdened by deception. Derek had redecorated, removing painful reminders while preserving family photos that Jacob treasured. His son's resilience had been remarkable, his academic performance actually improving after the initial turmoil settled. Occasionally, letters arrived from the women's correctional facility where Marissa was serving her sentence. Derek set these aside for Jacob to read if he chose, never pressuring him either way. Their relationship was for them to navigate, separate from his own experience with Marissa. Derek had dated casually in recent months, approaching new relationships with both caution and hope. A coffee meeting with Jacob's calculus teacher had evolved into occasional dinner dates, no pressure, just the comfortable company of another adult who understood complicated family situations through her own divorce experience. The betrayal had changed Derek, but not hardened him. Instead, it had clarified his values and boundaries. He found himself more direct in his communications, less willing to accept surface explanations, but also more appreciative of genuine connections. As he finished reviewing Jacob's essay, Derek felt genuine pride. His son had written about overcoming family challenges with honesty and maturity beyond his years. The final paragraph resonated particularly deeply. While my family doesn't look like I expected it would, I've learned that integrity matters more than appearances. My father taught me that how we respond to life's challenges defines us more than the challenges themselves. This is the principle I intend to carry with me into my college experience and beyond. Derek closed the laptop, smiling. From the wreckage of betrayal, something valuable had emerged. A deeper relationship with his son and a life rebuilt on honesty rather than illusion. That evening, as they grilled steaks on the patio, a new Friday tradition they'd established, Jacob mentioned casually that he'd read his mother's latest letter. "She gets out in 2 months," he said, flipping his steak with practiced precision. "Wants to see me." "How do you feel about that?" Derek asked carefully. Jacob considered the question. "I think I'll meet with her. Not right away, but eventually. She's still my mom, even after everything." "That's fair. Whatever you decide, I'll support you." "I know, Dad." Jacob smiled slightly. "That's why this turned out okay, you know. Because you never made me choose sides or hate her. You just focused on us moving forward." The justice had been served, not just through courts and consequences, but through the creation of something better from what had been broken. Sitting in my office a year after the final court hearing, I sometimes reflect on the journey from that moment of discovery, a simple tube of lubricant that unraveled 20 years of marriage. The temporary satisfaction of my calculated revenge pales compared to the peace I've found in rebuilding a life centered on truth. The hardest lesson wasn't learning about Marissa's betrayal, but recognizing that living authentically, even through pain, brings more fulfillment than maintaining comfortable illusions. At my age, I've come to value honesty above all else, a perspective that perhaps only comes after watching something you believed in crumble under the weight of deception. Jacob has watched me navigate this transformation, learning through observation rather than lecture that integrity creates its own rewards. When he leaves for college next fall, he'll carry that understanding with him, a legacy more valuable than any material inheritance I could provide. What surprises me most is how completely my definition of justice has evolved. In those first raw days after discovery, justice meant seeing Marissa suffer as I had suffered, hence the superglue and capsaicin incidents that, while providing momentary satisfaction, ultimately contributed nothing to my healing. True justice emerged not from my orchestrated revenge, but from the natural consequences of exposed truth, legal proceedings, social accountability, and the opportunity to rebuild with integrity. Occasionally, letters still arrive from Marissa's detention facility. I place them in Jacob's mail stack without comment, respecting his right to maintain or redefine that relationship on his terms. My focus remains forward, on campus visits, graduation preparations, and building new traditions that honor our smaller but stronger family unit. I've learned that betrayal doesn't define you unless you let it. For a time, I was in danger of becoming someone I wouldn't recognize, calculating revenge rather than processing grief. But somewhere between the pain and the healing, I rediscovered the person I wanted to be. When life hands you betrayal, remember that your response defines you more than the wrong done to you. Choose justice over vengeance, truth over comfort, and watch how quickly the glue of deception dissolves in the face of integrity. What matters most isn't the consequences others face for their actions, but the person you become through the process, someone who values authenticity over illusion and rebuilding over resentment. In that reconstruction lies the most satisfying justice of all, the freedom to live without deception, either from others or from yourself.